Welcome back to this edition of Eagle Talk. I'm your host, Aiden Lewandowski, and I'm here with a very special guest, DeShawn Johnson from Mid-Michigan Now, NBC 25, and Fox 66. How are you doing today, man?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. So just jumping right into it, some background questions. Just give us some background information about yourself. How did you get to where you are today?
We were talking a little bit about it for the podcast. It's definitely been a long journey for me, but, just to keep things swift, I started really my journalism career at Michigan State University. I actually didn't start there until I was a sophomore, believe it or not. But the community there, as far as the journalism school and just the communication school as a whole, they were super opening and super welcoming. I got in there as a sophomore, and immediately before I was out of that sophomore year, I got involved with student-run programs. I was covering games, covering local stories. So, all the credit goes to Michigan State as far as how I got into journalism. And then following my graduation in 2024, Mid-Michigan Now. I've been a Michigander my entire life, and Mid-Michigan Now was one of the places I was kind of interested in just first stopping by. Yeah. A lot of MSU alumni have come through there, and they welcome me in.
And what originally got you interested in journalism or reporting?
I think, like I said, I didn't start in journalism, but one of the biggest things that kind of got me into it was just that it's sports journalism in specific. I've always been a part of sports. I played sports all throughout high school, and being a part of it for so long made me realize that, of course, there's the game, there's the highlights, which as a sports reporter, I love covering.
Right.
But at the same time, there was also a lot of hidden stories that people don't get to see about athletes all the time, especially for the big-time athletes on TV, college athletes and stuff like that. There's only these small moments where you get to interact with them and see them, but there's so much more happening within their lives, within these teams, and so it's really cool to be able to learn and tell those story aspects. So I think that's the biggest thing that got me into journalism overall.
And as a fellow Spartan now, going into the fall, tell us about the Michigan State experience and how it has kind of influenced your reporting or journalism today.
Yeah, first of all, congratulations on that, man.
Appreciate that.
Like I said, I'm a big advocate for MSU, and there was a lot that happened, while I was a student at MSU. Both, not to say bad, but good and bad.
Right.
Especially, for someone that's within the media, there was a lot of things that, as a student reporter, that I had to cover that really just kind of got me on the ground running. But as far as a whole, the school, I would recommend anyone to go to MSU. Now, I am, of course, a little bit biased, being a former student, but for a lot of kids, for a lot of people getting into college, it's your first time experience of kind of, doing your thing as an adult. And I think MSU really offers the full experience as far as, the living situations that they have, the community that you're constantly interacting with every day. Like, whether it's, as someone that was in journalism, I spent a lot of time in the same building, but my other classes, I would have to go to different places, interact with new people, and it always felt like these people were people I was super close to by, my second day in the room. So, MSU truly, from all the great food offerings they have there too, East Lansing, I think, is a great place for someone to kind of get their foot in the door, whether it's journalism or business or whatever it may be. MSU is a great place.
Yeah, I've been around Michigan State basically my entire life. I went to games as a kid. My mom had a connection through work. So I used to go to the football games. The environment was always great there. The tailgating was great there. And then when we went this summer, when we were looking at colleges, I was kind of indecisive about CMU or MSU. And when we went for Green and White Day, to be honest, I don't know if it was just the vibe there, but it just felt special, and I felt like I was at home. And that was, a feeling that no other college gave me. So that ultimately went into my decision to go to Michigan State. So now getting into your current job, what has been your pathway since college? What initial jobs did you pick up or experiences that have helped you today?
Yeah, so like we talked a little bit, kind of getting straight out of college, I am blessed to say that I got into this job within just a few months of me being in post-graduation. There were a lot of experience that I had really towards the end of my college career that, although I was a student, gave me a lot of that kind of running room into getting into this job. I worked for like newspaper publications out in the Lansing area. I covered different magazines, and also there's a lot of different student-run media groups there too. So I have to credit all those. But I've been with Mid-Michigan Now since July of 2024. I graduated in April of 2024. Mm-hmm. So it was a quick turnover, and there's a hiring process and everything in between too. Right. So I since being out of school, it's really just been me getting to learn this industry as a full professional. And it's definitely been a learning process. I started just, taking video, not doing as many voiceover stories, and then over time, I started getting into those kind of stories. Now I do our sports highlights on Fridays. It's just been a process of taking in what I think I can and building up and taking in more the next day. So, like I said, yeah, it's been in Michigan now for the last 2 years or so, but it's been it's been an experience that I would not trade for anything else.
That's awesome. And what does a typical day look like for you at your job? Like, what goes into putting together a story that maybe the viewers don't get to see?
Yeah, so usually, I would say that, you asked me what it takes in a typical day. It usually probably starts the day before, even a couple of days before, especially, when we're trying to set up a story. I mean, it is somewhat the typical what people may know about a reporter. I'm looking at different things, whether it's finding stories on social media or hearing what people are saying in different group forums and stuff like that, and then I'm making phone calls or I'm reaching out to people, whether it's through social media, personal messages, or if I can get access to phone numbers. But that's all the beginning of the process, reaching out to people, reaching out to contacts to try and get in the process of a story. And then once I get in, so like later today, I can basically break down what my day will look like later today. I have a couple interviews once I get in to kind of prepare for a story I have going on later today. I do, I think, 2 different interviews, and then after that, I spend a couple of hours writing up a script, getting all the video that I need necessary, whether that's me going to shoot some video or video that we have in like our system. Putting that story together, usually somewhere around there, you got to try and get some food if you can, and then even though it sounds like a day already, being someone that does sports as well, high school basketball is going crazy right now. So it'll be at least 2 games of highlights tonight, and before you know it, it's 9, 10 o'clock, and we're editing the shows now, kind of getting ready for the night to go. So it's just a day. It's not the same every day. It's always something a little bit different, but it consists of the same things as far as getting in, getting my stuff prepared, getting out the door, getting the video, and then getting back in.
And what is the most rewarding part and challenging part of your job?
To answer the latter question first, I definitely think the most challenging part can just be the deadlines that come with, being on live television, because that's exactly what it is. It's live television. So there are certain days where I can get in, I usually come in around 1 p.m. That's when my day starts. We have a 6 p.m. news broadcast. So I've got, a couple of hours to get some stuff going there. And some days, I'm right up to the line. I had a great story yesterday, and I think I finished it 5:40-ish maybe. So, there's only a 20-minute variance right there where you're like, okay, is everything right? Let me double check it again. And then it's got to go in the show before it goes out live. And once it goes out there, there's nothing I can do about it. But I also think that feeling that you get after, knowing that, hey, I got this done, I got through this, whatever it may be, especially if I was thinking if I was worried about it before, I'm thinking, hey, I might not get this done. That can be one of the most rewarding feelings. Is just that as someone that's really young in this industry, it can be, a little bit nerve-wracking at times, but once I get through with it, once I get done with it, it's a sense of accomplishment that you get of, hey, I did that, I made it through, I know I can do this now. So that's definitely one of the biggest things. And then also just getting to tell some really heartwarming stories, whether it be for sports or for the news side, getting the feedback from that, whether it be a family or an individual, and hearing how they felt about the story. That's also one of the greatest feelings there is.
For sure. So just a final wrap-up question. Is there any advice for an aspiring sports broadcaster like me or journalist that you have that is trying to get into the news industry?
Yeah, honestly, my biggest, offer of advice you're kind of already doing is just, like you said, try and get your foot in the door. Don't be afraid to try and get in the industry, because as I said, talking to you, this is not something that I started in. I got a late start, and yet I'm still creating my own pathway. And I think that, to any high schooler or to anyone your age, younger or older, around my age, it's something that you can get into. This industry is going to be forever growing. There's more and more people, especially with the age of social media. Media is always going to be a part of what us as humans got going on. And so I know it can be intimidating, especially, as far as thinking, hey, this is TV, it can be nerve-wracking. It's, I don't want to mess up. But truly, you're going to make mistakes. I make them all the time. You're going to learn from those mistakes, and it's going to have you come out to be a better broadcaster, a better journalism, person part of journalism. So I just go out there and find the opportunities, whether you think they're going to happen for you or not. I didn't think this was going to happen for me. So just take all the opportunities you can, and don't be afraid to try it.
Making those connections is very important. That's going to wrap up today's episode of Eagle Talk. I'd like to thank DeShawn for taking time out of his day to talk with me about sports broadcasting and his job and what goes into that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Of course.